This is Max. Today's video is about Revelation chapter 8, verse 8, the second trumpet in Revelation. This video, even though I've done videos with covering various different plagues all in one, this video, the second trumpet, is going to require an extensive video here. This is why I'm doing this. It's a video by itself. Now I've covered some of Revelation 8. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead verses in Revelation 8 till we get to verse 8, because I've already covered them in previous videos. So, Revelation chapter 8 says, "The second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed." Now, this sounds like a pretty serious plague. The last plague, or trumpet, was the third of the trees were burned up and all the green grass was burned up. Now, in one of my last videos, I of course talked about all the fires that have been going on around the world, and an awful lot of trees obviously have been burned up in these fires. I can't say how much of the grass is burned up, but if it says all the green grass eventually burns up, it probably will. Or, I'm wondering if the grass in the fire also can refer to such things as corn, which is in fact a green grass. So is rice. It may just simply be referring to what we typically think of as our front lawns, or maybe it covers these grains too. I mean, that would definitely send the world into an economic spiral if the food prices skyrocketed. In the second trumpet, you'll see this again, this 1/3 description being used when speaking of destruction brought about by this trumpet. So why a third? What is this third thing? The concept of a third of something is not uncommon in the Bible. It is used other times throughout the Old and New Testaments, and particularly in Revelation. I believe it has something to do with the third of the angels falling at this time. If a third of the angels of God are rebellious, it seems likely that God is showing us that He, in essence, is cleaning house of this 33 1/3% of what's wrong in the heavens and the earth. So, and of course, the satanic elite love to use the number 33. I'm pretty sure they're alluding back to their rebellion. So where will this plague hit, and what is it exactly? Now, this is a time where I have to show you what was revealed to me back in 2011. Now, see, back in 2011, I woke up in the middle of the night, maybe about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had a very powerful vision to where I had seen the future of this second trumpet, and I felt very compelled at that time to do a video about it. And like I said, it consumed me. I definitely believe it was the Holy Spirit trying to tell me something. Still due to this day. This is why I'm doing this video now again. I spent a couple of days trying to put together a video about what I saw. But back then I didn't know a lot about how the copyright works when it comes to posting videos. So I couldn't figure out why every time I posted my video somewhere, they kept saying copyright problems. And I was like, what? It's just a few pictures. Of course, now I realize it was because I had copyrighted music on it. I used a song, somebody else's music on it, and that's what was flagging it. So duh, I don't do that. Of course, now I create my own music, so I won't have that problem anymore. Anyway, the subject about the second trumpet and how it will affect a significant portion of the world soon is really important. So at that time, I thought perhaps it was going to happen back in 2011. Of course, it didn't. So thank God for that. So like I said, it was a very troubling vision, and but I guess it wasn't time for me to release that video at that time. So I feel now this is the time. So first thing I have to do before we get into this, before I get started on this prophecy that was revealed to me, we need to establish just who is Ephraim. Okay, now he was a son of Joseph, one of his sons, grandson to Jacob, and there have been many writers that have said before that Ephraim is none other than the United States of America. Yet there are many opponents on this revelation who continue to insist that they are right, and that Ephraim is the United Kingdom, Britain and Scotland, Canada, stuff like that. Some of these so-called proofs they use to support their theory are almost comical. Like, for example, Manasseh was more democratic, and therefore America must be a Manasseh. Ephraim had more nobility, and therefore England must be Ephraim. Most writers seem to think that Manasseh is the United States and Ephraim is the United Kingdom. I'm going to show you that this is definitely wrong. Now, Joseph was given the birthright Joseph was given the birthright, and Ephraim received the double portion or blessing. Okay, Jacob placed when he was getting close to death, Joseph brought his children in, and Jacob placed his right hand on Ephraim and his left hand on Manasseh. And of course, Joseph tries to correct him on this. He says, "No, I know what I'm doing. Okay, I may be blind, but I'm not stupid." Ephraim is going to get the double blessing. He's getting the birthright blessing. So, and as it says in Jeremiah 31:9, "They shall come in with weeping and with supplication will I lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in the straight way, where they shall not stumble. For I am the father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn." This crossing of the arms is seen on both countries' flags. Britain has 2 crossed bars on it, and the United States also has flags with crossed bars on it, such as the Confederate flag. These crossed bars are also known as the Cross of St. Andrew, as it was said that Andrew the Apostle was crucified on a cross made like this. We have 2 crossed beams making an X. The symbols of Ephraim in the Bible also match the United States and not Britain. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up some scriptures here to talk about Ephraim and his history. These first ones here is from Genesis 49, verse 22. "Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. But his bow and strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. For thence is the shepherd the stone of Israel. Even by God the Father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings in the heaven above, blessings in the deep that lieth in the heavens, lieth under, and the blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, unto the uppermost bounds of everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separated from his brethren." So, anyway, here we got all these blessings coming here. The fruitful branch of the olive tree is one of the symbols of the United States. Secondly, another symbol is the arrow. Both of these symbols are depicted on the back of a $1 bill, as well as many other places, with the eagle clutching a branch and a bundle of arrows. Thirdly, the United States by far is the preeminent military superpower of the world, whose hands have been made strong by the hand of the God of Jacob. Psalm 60 verse 7 says, "Manasseh is mine, Ephraim is the strength of my head, Judah is my lawgiver." The strength of the head depicted in this verse is the helmet. Again, this points to military defense, and who else but us defends Israel as well as many other nations. Next passage is Deuteronomy 33 verses 13 through 17. It's when Moses was blessing the children of Israel, and he says, "And Joseph," he says, blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of the heaven, for the dew and for the deep that crouches beneath, for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth, and the fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwell in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. The glory is like the firstling of a bullock, and his horns like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh." In this passage you see other things that allude to the United States, such as symbols of the bull, the symbol of bull, which is usually the United States. You see it in reference to financial districts. I'm sure everybody's probably seen the giant brass bull they have out in front of I believe it's out in front of the New York Stock Exchange. So, and what other country has pushed together people from all ends of the earth but the United States? We are the melting pot of the world, and as it says in this passage, Ephraim with his 10,000 and Manasseh with its thousands. It's obvious that the United States has far more people compared to the United Kingdom. Now, I'm also going to cover some other passages from the book of Hosea, who was prophesying at the time of Isaiah. He was his contemporary, and he speaks a lot about Ephraim, and what he says fits perfectly with the United States. Hosea 14:7 says, "Ephraim is joined to idols, let her alone." United States, probably you could say, has more idols and not just statues, cars, businesses, homes, jewels, whatever. Everything is an idol these days. Hosea 5:3 says, I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hid from me. For now, O Ephraim, thou committest whoredom, and Israel is defiled. Yeah, we produce more pornography in this country and sexual filth than you probably think of. So yeah, we're definitely joined with whores. Hosea 5:14 says, For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. If we are in fact we all came from, the United States came from the people coming from Britain, and Britain is represented as a lion to this day, and so in essence we're kind of a young lion now, kind of we're the younger brother, just like Ephraim was. Hosea 7:8 says, Ephraim, he has mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Again, mixture of people. We've mixed all the people in the world. Again, the melting pot of the world. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Well, what happens if you're cooking a piece of bread on a fire and you don't turn it? One side ends up brown and black, and the other side's white. Well, we've got all three of those nations in us. We got white, brown, and black people here. Hosea 7 verse 11 says, Ephraim is also like a silly dove without heart. They call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. Back in the day, Ephraim was looking for the help from Egypt and Assyria and stuff like that. Today, we have relationships with, in fact, Egypt. Assyria today, that doesn't just cover where you would consider Persia, which is Iran now, but also Assyria also included things like the land of Syria and Iraq. So, yeah, are we not in Assyria? Do we not have dealings with Egypt? Yes, we will have both. Hosea 8:9 says, For they are all gone up to Assyria, a wild ass, alone by himself. Ephraim has hired lovers. Yes, in fact, who's the one that supposedly hired ISIS to ransack the Middle East? Yeah, we did. So we hired people from Ephraim. We have hired lovers. We hire all kinds of people, good and bad, for various things. Hosea 8:11 says, Because Ephraim has made many altars to sin, altars shall be unto him to sin. Now, we've made so many altars to false gods in this country that these days we actually have people that don't believe in any altars. So, how many people go around saying that anything religious is bad too? So, we've made so many altars to sin that there are in fact people out there that think that an altar altogether is sin. Hosea 9:8, The watchman of Ephraim was with my God, but the prophet is a snare of a fowler in all his ways, and hatred in the house of his God. Now, how many phony baloney preachers do we got out there, and phony watchmen out there that are nothing but a snare and to God's house and God's people? I mean, so Hosea 9:11 says, As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird, from the birth and from the womb and from the conception. Yeah, our glory is quickly fading, guys. That's why the president wants to make America great again. I don't know if we'll ever reach that level again. I believe we were great at one time, but I don't think we're ever going to achieve it to the level we are. It doesn't mean we can't try to make it better, but I don't think we can make it great again. Hosea 9:13 says, Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place, but Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer. Yes, well, first of all, our country is beautiful. We got some of the most beautiful scenery and land in the world. And then the second passage here says, he brings his children forth to the murderer. Yeah, we're one of the number ones when it comes to abortion. We bring forth our children to murderers. Okay? It's a sad state, but yes, that literally is what it's saying here. Hosea 11:12, Ephraim compasses me about with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit, but Judah yet ruleth with God, and is faithful with the saints. So, yeah, how many people in this country are lying? It seems like lies everywhere. You can't even watch the news or most TV without listening to a bunch of lies coming from people. It's like we live on lies, and then when they get caught in their lies, they just lie about it more. Hosea 12:1 says, Ephraim feedeth on the wind, and he follows after the east wind, which means he moves to the east. He daily increases lies and desolation. Again, there's the lies and desolation. We're bombing everything out there. And they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and oil is carried into Egypt. Yeah, we have dealings with Egypt and oil. Come on, we got passageways in through Egypt that we carry oil through. We made covenants with the Assyrians. Well, that would be modern day Iran. Anybody remember the $150 billion that Obama and all them sent to them over oil? I mean, this is like reading today's headlines. Hosea 12:8 says, "And Ephraim said, Yet I am become rich. I have found me out substance. In all my labors they shall find no iniquity in me that were sin." Do we constantly go around saying, there's nothing wrong with us, we're not sinful, we're become rich? That almost sounds like the same passage that when Jesus is speaking about the church of Laodicea, we're rich and we have need of nothing. Yeah, well, that's not the case. So, yeah, these passages in Hosea definitely point out that the United States is Ephraim, modern day Ephraim. Okay, so now we're going to get into the heart of the matter, which is, first we're going to start in Isaiah chapter 9. And I'm going to cover a small passage here that a pastor named Jonathan Cahn, who you may have heard of, did a variety of books, one of them being called The Harbinger, which deals with a particular passage in Isaiah chapter 9, which he shows our country, in fact, did ourselves too. That, way back in the day, ancient Israel apparently proclaimed this curse upon themselves, and the United States has followed suit and has done all kinds of different things to push this. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of this. If you want to read his book, get a hold of it somehow, buy it. There's plenty of videos online where he discusses the details of it. So, but what I'm just going to cover the passage a little bit here before I get on to the real major part. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 9, it says, "And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stone. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars." So, what you see there is you see this curse. God destroys them, destroys their bricks, and they're going to build it with cut stone now. And the sycamores are fallen, so we're going to put in stronger cedars. It's showing an unrepentant heart. It's one of those cases where, oh God, you've brought judgment on us? Well, we're not going to repent. We're going to double down, okay? We're going to come back stronger than ever and more rebellious. And so, yeah, he wrote this entire book on this passage. The reason I wanted to cover it real quickly is because of the simple fact that he's speaking not just to Israel, but it says even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria. Well, again, going back to if we are in fact Ephraim, well, then you see that. You see us being part of that judgment, which we know today, I believe, is true. Okay, so now the ultimate heart of the matter, and this is from the vision that I received back in 2011. It's in Isaiah chapter 28, and it goes like this. "Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is as a fading flower, which are on the ahead of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine." Now, when you look this up, I did this the other day. When I looked this up in Hebrew, this passage, I just felt compelled to kind of look at the Hebrew words that were being used here. I found something very interesting. When you look at it, okay, when we're looking at it in Hebrew, and it says, when you're covering the part, it says, flowers, heads, fat valley of them overcome with wine. Well, when I look at all the Hebrew words in order here, you've got the word for flowers is tzitz. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Then it says, which are on the head, which is rosh. The fat or fruitful is shemen. And valley is ga'ah. And them that are overcome, there is halem. And wine is yayin. When you look at them all in that order, I see flower. Okay, well, a lot of people don't know this, but the word rosh is also a word that's used when describing an opium poppy. The head of a poppy, the little opium poppy head, is used as rosh. The word rosh is also used to describe something bitter, which opium is. So I see here the flower of rosh, shemen, which is the liquid, is basically the resinous liquid, is what this is saying, from the valleys of them that are overcome or addicted to this intoxicant. So in this passage, this first passage here, you see the mentioning of opium. The opium resin from the valleys has caused people to become addicted and fall. Yeah, we're looking at a different way of looking at this. And we in this country are suffering from a massive opium epidemic. So this is something that's completely a little off subject here, but I wanted to cover that just so you can see how really important this whole passage is. So I'm going to go ahead and continue here. Behold, the Lord has a mighty and strong one, which is a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing shall cast down to the earth with the hand. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, shall be trodden underfoot, and the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be a fading flower, and the hasty fruit before the summer, which when he that looketh upon it seeth it, and while it is in his hand he eats it up. Again, I'm talking about this flower, these fadings, and it almost seems like these people, before it's even ripened, they're eating it up. Again, I think it goes back to this addiction thing. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory, and for a diadem of beauty unto the residue of his people. And I remember what we were saying about how Ephraim is the head, Ephraim is the strength, Ephraim is a crown. Yeah, again, so you see in this crown of pride, this crown. I'm going to go ahead and continue here. And for the spirit of judgment to him that sitteth in judgment, and for the strength to them that turn the battle to the gate. But they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priests and prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision, and they stumble in judgment. And so you see again, even the priests and prophets are intoxicated, they're consumed. And I don't think it necessarily has to be physically, which I'm sure they are, but the priests and prophets, all of our ministers and priests and religious leaders, they're out of the way. They're intoxicated by the things of this world, whether it be physically or spiritually, and they have erred. They're gone. And again, so you see this. So there's like what you see in the world. They don't preach the truth. And remember, I covered earlier with Hosea talking about the same thing, that their priests and watchmen have fallen out of the way. Okay, so we'll continue. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there's none place clean. Now, this is interesting because it says tables full of vomit and filthiness. The Hebrew word in there for filthiness is poop. Okay, it's dung. So these people's tables, these people's places of dwelling is full of vomit and crap. So there's no place clean. It almost made me think of San Francisco, where they actually have a poop map. They actually have a map showing you where all the people who poop in the streets and the places to avoid. And that's how bad we're getting. Okay, continue. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from milk and drawn from the breasts. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Now, this passage here is used by many ministers and pastors I've heard, showing that this is how we learn doctrine. Okay, and it's true. This passage does speak of that, but in particular, it's referring to this particular judgment that's coming upon Ephraim. So, but anyway, you have this line upon line, and that's how you learn the Bible. You read a little here, you little passage here. I mean, skipping around from verse to verse is not how you read Scripture. If you feel the need to read Scripture, pick a chapter, read the whole chapter, and when you're done and you want to read again something else, read the next chapter. Try to keep it in order, or you're just not going to learn properly. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people, to whom is he said, This is rest, wherewith you may cause the weary to rest, and this is the refreshing. Yet they would not hear. But the word of the Lord was unto them, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go in and fall backwards and be broken and snared and taken. Now see, they're using the Scripture differently. And notice here it says, this line upon line and precept upon precept causes them to fall backwards, be broken, snared, and taken. So, the Word of God can be that way too, and can be a judgment upon you instead of a blessing. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue here. Wherefore hear the word of the Lord, you scornful men that rule this people which are in Jerusalem, because you have said, We have made a covenant with death, and hell we are in agreement with. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. That sounds exactly like our country. We hide under lies and falsehoods. We have made a covenant with death and hell. Remember my teaching on, spoke about the 4 horsemen, and I spoke about the 4th horse, the green horse or the pale horse. And it says there that death and hell follow with him. Again, maybe this death and hell covenant is referring to is a covenant that we have made through Islamic countries and people. Now, it may just simply be a covenant of death and hell because of their wickedness, but it's possible this covenant of death and hell has to do with covenants that we've made with people in the Middle East. And I'm going to go, as I read on, you'll understand why that may be so. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. This is a passage referring to the Messiah, that God, he is the true foundation and cornerstone. So, judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters shall overflow the hiding place. So while these people think they're going to hide in the refuge of lies, God's saying he's going to bring this plague of hail and overflowing waters into their refuge and hiding places. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then shall you be trodden down by it. For the time that it goeth forth, it shall take you. For morning by morning shall it pass over, by day and by night. It shall be a vexation only to understand the report. So, I gather from this here that it says, from morning by morning shall it pass over, by day and night. So, this plague that's coming upon Ephraim and others, it shows later on it's not just Ephraim. This plague that's going to go on seems to last for at least a day and night, from morning to morning. So that's, from one morning to the next morning, or actually it's evening to evening, is considered a day in the Bible, from evening to evening. Morning to morning would be a day too, if you wanted to measure it differently. So this plague may go forth for a whole day, or maybe more, a little bit, but it's going to take a while. Anyway, so, for the bed is shorter than a man can stretch himself on it, and the covering narrower than he can wrap himself in it. So just like they can't seem to hide themselves. Ever slept on someone's couch or a bed that was too short, and you're all crumped up on it, or had a blanket and trying to cover it with it, and you pull it up towards your head, and your feet could become uncovered. It's like this is what he's saying. He's saying it's just like that, guys. He's saying you're covering your refuge of lies is going to be like sleeping on a short bed or having a short blanket. For the Lord shall rise up as in Mount Perazim, and he shall be wroth as in the valley of Gibeon, that he may do his work, his strange work, and bring to pass his act, his strange act. Now, this passage requires us to go somewhere else in the Bible to find out what is this. What is it? What happened in Mount Perazim, and what happened in the valley of Gibeon that he's comparing this to? So, first we'll go back. First one he says here is Mount Perazim. So we'll go to Mount Perazim. That word's been used a few times in the Bible, but there's a particular event that happens that is pivotal to this, was what he's referring to. And it's in Joshua chapter 10. Now in Joshua chapter 10, that the children of Israel come against a man called Adonai-Zedek, who, if you've watched my 18 archetypes of the Antichrist, he's one of them. He's an Antichrist figure in the Bible. So Adonai-Zedek, who was the king of the Jerusalem at the time, because see, this is before they actually took control of it, he, along with 4 other kings, were trying to fight against the Israelis, and so it was their 5 nations against Israel. And as they fought throughout the day, they were having trouble. They're having 5 armies here that they're fighting against. Anyway, as it continues on, they're fighting. I'm sure they're getting wearied because this goes on for a while. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, and he and the people warred with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said to Joshua, Fear not, for I have delivered them into your hands, and thou shalt be not a man that shall not be taken by you. So I'm thinking that Joshua is getting weary at this time. This is why God gives him a encouragement. Joshua therefore came suddenly and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter in Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Beth Horon, and smote them in Azekah, even unto Makkadah. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and they were going down to Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven. Here's this hail coming, upon them unto Azekah, and they died. There was more which died from the hailstones than from whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. That's a pretty serious hail. I'm guessing there's thousands of troops out there, and like I said, Joshua and his people seem to be having some problems here. And so God rains down hailstones that are so deadly that they take out more people than the children of Israel killed by the sword. And then spoke Joshua to the Lord that day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. He said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And so the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is this not written about also in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down for about a whole day. And there was not a day like it that was before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. So the sun and moon stand still for 24 hours. Wow, right? I mean, wow. They knew that Joshua does this because he realizes the sun's getting, is going to get late. They're going to be fighting these people far longer than a day. And at nighttime, it's hard to fight, especially back then. Modern day is a little bit easier, but, it's a lot harder to fight. Most people fought battles in the daytime. So Joshua says to the sun and moon, and God accepts that and stops the moon for a whole day and the sun for a whole day so that he has enough light to defeat them so they don't escape. I mean, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And of course, scientists say, oh, it's impossible. You're right, it is impossible. But nothing with God is impossible. And I'd like to say this. This also points to the fact that we are not spinning around the sun. In order for this to happen according to a heliocentric model, guess what would have to happen? The Earth would have to stop spinning, and it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, probably about 700-800 miles anywhere else. How do you stop something from spinning at 1,000 miles an hour down to zero, in order for the sun to appear to have stopped, without destroying the entire Earth? I'm sorry, but if the Earth was spinning and you try to stop it, everything on Earth would die. There would be earthquakes that would be so big they would destroy everything. They would crash the mountains. I would expect there would be tsunamis that would be thousands of feet high that would wash over the entire continents. Okay, it was not happening, and then you still have to start it back up again. So no, but if there's simply lights in the sky, well, then stopping them is not a problem. It's just as easy as moving like a flashlight from one side of the room to another. You know what I mean? A lot easier. But you can believe whatever you want. So anyway, then the 5 kings, they go and hide in a cave. Well, Joshua says, I want you to roll a great stone over the mouth of the cave. And then later on, after they defeat their armies, they go back and they kill all 5 of these kings. Now, this type of battle here, and this is one of the battles in the Bible that is called an Armageddon-type battle. The first one is in Genesis chapter 14. This is another one of these. Why is that? Because of the fact that he's fighting 5 kings, one of those kings being an Antichrist figure, the fact that a supernatural event happens that day, which is hail, and the sun standing still, which you see also in the days of judgment at the end of time, we'll see the same type of things. Signs in the sun and moon, and there'll be a great hail. Okay? And the fact that these 5 kings, they hide themselves in the caves and the dens of the rocks, like Revelation. So they are hiding in a cave again. And that's what people do at the end of time. So it's a pretty great day there. So you see that's one of the places. Now the next place he speaks of is in the valley of Gibeon. Okay, so we turn to, what is he talking about here again? This is in 2 Samuel chapter 5. Okay, now at this time David's getting a little bit older in life. He's been a king for a while. He hasn't been king. He's been crowned king. Finally, he's gotten, Saul's dead. But he's still having to deal with battles with people. And one of the most common enemies of Israel was the Philistines. So, anyway, I'm going to show where we're going to get into here. So, chapter 5, verse 17 says, But when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, and all the Philistines came up to seek David, but David heard of it and went down to the hold. The Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. Now, I don't know if you know what the word Rephaim is, but it's a type of giant, like the Nephilim giants. That was the name of the valley. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to the Philistines? Will you deliver him into my hand? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for I will doubtless, no doubt, deliver the Philistines into your hand. And David came to Baal Perazim. See, there's the word, Perazim. Because Perez in the Bible means a division. which means to divide. So it came down to Baal Perazim, which is which would refer to Baal, like the god Baal. So they'll call Baal division. Anyway, and David smote them there and said, "The Lord has broken forth upon my enemies before me as a breach upon waters." Therefore he called the name of the place Baal Perazim. So again, where it said Perez means breach. Well, this he says, he came before my enemies as a breach of waters. So he's talking about waters. Was there water there? I don't know. The Philistines lived near the beach. Okay, where modern day Palestine is, that's where the land of Philistines was. It's on the beach there of Israel, or the Israeli beach area, southern part. So he says a breach of waters, which I find interesting. Why use that? Why not just say breach? What does this deal with the waters? Anyway, there they left their images, and David and his men burned them. So they burned their idols. And the Philistines came up yet again, and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when David inquired of the Lord, he said, "Thou shalt not go up, but you fetch a compass behind them, and come up there over against them, against the mulberry tree." So the Lord told David, "No, I don't want you to attack them head on anymore. I want you to go and hide behind them." Okay, where the mulberry trees are, which is another word for sycamores. "And let it be when you hear the sound you hear a sound going off in the tops of the mulberry trees, then the Lord shall then the Lord shall stir you. So listen to this, for then the Lord shall go out before you, and shall smite the host of the Philistines. And David did so, and the Lord commanded him, and they smote the Philistines from Geba thereof unto Gazer." So you see here, the first battle, he tells him to go up. The next time, though, he says, "I want you to hide behind them in the mulberry trees, and I'm going to attack them." Again, this is another Armageddon-type battle. The Philistines were a sworn enemy of the Jews, and here's their chance. Here's God giving him a command to go and attack them. The first time, which he calls a breach of waters. Okay, is it possible that maybe God sent a tidal wave on the beach of the Philistines and drowned them? Maybe. I mean, I don't want to read too much in Scripture, but when I see that, I'm thinking, because he said he overflowed them. Okay, so let's go back to Isaiah chapter 28. So it says, I'll read it again. "The Lord shall rise up in Mount Perazim," which was just like in the days of when David was fighting the Philistines, "and he should be wroth as in the valley of Gibeon." Well, that's when the sun stopped and the hail came. So you got sun, hail, and water. It says that he may do his work, his strange act, and bring to pass his act, his strange act. "Now therefore be not mockers, lest your hands be made strong. For I have heard from the Lord God of hosts a consumption, even determined unto the whole earth." So this is going to affect the whole earth. "Give your ear and hear my voice. Hearken unto me and hear my speech. Does a plowman plow a day to sow? Does he open and break the clods of the ground? When he has made plain the face thereof, does he not cast abroad the fitches, and scatter the cumin, and cast the principal wheat and the appointed barley and the rye in their places? For God does instruct him with the discretion, and he also does teach him." Okay, now I'm not going to go ahead and read the rest of the chapter, because it basically is referring to the same thing. Like, in order to cast seed, you have to break up the ground. You can't put seed in hard ground. You got to break it up. And the same way, I think God is describing this, because God's saying, in order for me to work with you as a repentant, true followers of me in the world, I'm going to have to break up the ground before I can cast my seeds. Okay? So this may very well be referring to what we're talking about here. This great plague that God is going to bring upon the world. So what is this great plague? Well, it says what it is. A tempest, a storm, an overflowing rain, waters, and great hail. If you read, we look back to Revelation chapter 8, verse 8, and talks about a mountain of fire being cast into the sea, and third part of the sea being destroyed, and ships, and life. I go back to this passage, this whole thing in Isaiah 28, and you see it alluding to all of this. It lets you know exactly what it is and how it sounds, just like the passages in Revelation 8. It actually sounds like several of the trumpets overall. So what is this going to do? Well, what mountain is going to be cast into the sea? Now, there's been people who have done shows on this one and some commentaries, both secular and religious, that speak of a mountain range, or I guess you could say it's more of a island range, right off the coast of West Africa. They call the Canary Islands, okay? Well, there are a bunch of volcanoes there. There's about seven to 10 volcanoes over there, and yes, they're active. They've never been severely active, like they're not blowing up and killing people, but they are in fact active, and they've gotten more active. I found this interesting. They started to become more active back in 2011 when I started researching this. They've only just continued down that road, and of course we see a lot of volcanic activity around the world. But what's interesting about this mountain range in particular is that, for instance, the mountains themselves, and one in particular, like is called La Palma. They have done some geographical surveys of the area and found that about half the mountain appears to be sliding down. There's a fissure that has opened up and cut across almost half the island, and it has actually slid down several feet. Well, what they're saying, the reason why this is happening is because this volcano is very unique in the fact that water has become trapped in the rocks. Well, water and rock don't mix. If you get with this water trapped in the rock, it leaves it open to for weakening in order for it to slide. Literally, the mountain crack could be that half the mountain slides down into the ocean, which would cause a massive tsunami. And now they predicted how big this thing would be. Some people say, it could be 100 feet high. Some people say it could be 50 feet high. And by the time it reaches a coast somewhere, it would only be 30 or 40 feet. But it would still be devastating, like the 2004 tsunami up there in the Philippines and stuff. So you have this mountain that literally has the ability to be cast into the sea. And it is a fire mountain, a mountain of fire, a volcano. But they try to downplay us and say, and they may not be talking about this one, yada yada yada. Sorry, but I think this is it. And all the mountains in this area, all these little volcanic mountains, apparently have this problem with this water being trapped in the rock. Well, when rock heats up, and that water heats up too, what does water turn into when it heats up? It turns into steam. And that steam pushes away from the rock. So any one of these mountains could suddenly fall into the ocean. Not just this La Palma one. There's another one, Cubre Viejo. There's a whole bunch of different mountains. If one or all of this, they all can be considered one mountain, really. They're all part of the same little area. If these mountains slid into the ocean, they would cause a massive tsunami, and we don't know how big. Okay, huge, devastating. First thing that wave would do, first places it would hit would be West Africa. Well, actually, the first place it would be able to hit would be the people that live on those islands. They'd be gone. The first target would be to hit West Africa. Okay, and of course the wave would probably be as largest there because it would have the most energy at that point. It could be anywhere, and I'll be conservative on this end, maybe 50 yards high, 50 meters high, or all the way up to hundreds of feet, 500, 600, 700 feet. We don't know. It all depends on how much the mountains break off in the ocean. If they all go down, the whole thing, and then I couldn't even begin to imagine. So West Africa will be hit, gone. There's places on the inland coast of West Africa, for instance, like Guyana and the Ivory Coast, stuff like that. Now, the way they're positioned in there, they may not get hit as bad, but it's possible that the wave could go around the edge of Africa into those areas and hit them too. Of course, the next target that would be places like Morocco and Spain. They're in close vicinity of these mountain ranges. So the coastlines of Spain would be obliterated, okay? And it's hard to say how far inland would this wave go. My guess, and what I believe and what I saw in this vision, is we're talking 5 to 10 miles. This must be a massive wave. And it's not necessarily just height, it's the length of the wave. That's what they say about tsunamis. It's not just the height of the wave. It's that they don't peak like a typical wave. It's just from one end of the wave to another. It could be hundreds of feet rather than just 10 feet. So, talking about the coast of Spain, wiped out, blah, blah, blah. Would the wave move inland past the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean? Sure, why not? I think it would go in there, and of course going through that little stray area would raise that wave up several hundred more feet because it could condense in that center. Wash over the beaches on the Morocco side of it, in Spain, and move into the Mediterranean, and it would probably affect things like France, maybe as far all the way as Italy or further. It's hard to say, we don't know. We don't know how big this wave would be, but I definitely believe that places in the Mediterranean may be affected by this wave. Maybe not as much as some other places, but definitely affected. Okay, then that wave is going to move up and hit places like England, Portugal, and all these other coastal cities, the other side of France, and maybe as far up as places like Norway and stuff like that. Who knows? But you see England, again, part of this whole thing. They're Manessa. You see them being hit. Their coastlines, boom, destroyed, you know. Great Britain moving up their rivers, boom, it probably hit London. I mean, the devastation from this thing would be unbelievable. So bad. Okay? Then, after it hits all that, as it moves across the Atlantic Ocean, going across, one of the next targets you can see will be any island in the Caribbean. That's Jamaica, that would be the Virgin Islands, that Puerto Rico, Cuba, Haiti. Personally, I don't see anybody surviving there, to be honest. I think those, because a lot of the islands are pretty small, and with the power and size of a wave like this, it would wash over them, all of them. I see the water just going over it like water goes over a rock in a river. So, gone. That's my opinion. Gone. All of them. Then that wave, one of the next places it would hit, Florida. Again, same problem. If this wave has the kind of strength that I believe it will have, it would not surprise me if this wave literally would wash over the entire peninsula of Florida. If not, it would be extraordinarily devastating on the western side of it. Okay, going in 10 miles. That wave moves in, hits anything that's in the Gulf Coast. That's Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, which is a low-lying area. That wave washes up there. No. Hurricane Katrina ain't gonna be nothing compared to something like this. Okay, and what little bit of New Orleans they rebuilt, it'll be gone too again, forever. Again, going all the way down there, hitting places in Central America, hit them. Places on the edge, South America, Brazil. Let's see, what other countries there? Brazil. Trying to think of all the countries that are there, but all the coasts of South America that are close to this wave are going to get hit. Major devastation there. And of course, for all of you in America, this is where I'm leading up to: the United States, not just Florida, but the entire eastern seaboard, all the way up to New York, Maine, and even parts of Canada as possible. This wave, when they say it comes up here, and because of the way the shelf works, the continental shelf works in on the eastern seaboard, this wave will lose a little bit of speed going into that continental shelf before it reaches land, and it's going to raise that wave up several hundred more feet. So this wave, by the time it hits the coastline of the United States, could be anywhere from 300 to 700 miles high, or 700 feet high, sorry. 300 to 700 feet high. Waves never been seen like that before anywhere. The only thing we have close to that is there are stories about a tsunami of the same type of thing, where a large piece of mountain slid into the ocean or slid into the water and created a massive wave up in Alaska. There's a high water mark in a certain area of this one mountain range where all the trees were wiped out and took out part of the coast. You can see how high the water went, and it was several hundred feet. So we're talking this massive wave, and it hits the entire coastline of the United States. I mean, gone. You're talking about North and South Carolina's beaches, gone. Virginia Beach, gone. I believe this wave will move all the way in. It'll move all the way up the Hudson River, or not Hudson River, it'll move all the way up the rivers and hit places like Washington, D.C. I honestly believe this is one of the judgments coming upon Washington, D.C. I think Washington, D.C. will be hit by this wave and devastated. I see New York, gone. I see the entire island of Manhattan will be obliterated. You think the Twin Towers falling was bad? How about the whole island? How about all of New York, New Jersey, their coastlines obliterated? And Manhattan is just an island. It'll be swept over. And you see all these stories and all these movies from Hollywood. There's always these, the movie Armageddon or Deep Impact, or there's always these various different disaster movies that show water always washing in, taking out the Statue of Liberty, taking out this, that. I can probably name half a dozen of them that you've probably seen or heard. So New York gone. So that's just plague. And then what's going to happen there? Well, the devastation from this will be tens of millions of people dead, billions of dollars in damages. Countries like ours and Britain and Spain, they'll be crippled because of this. Because the amount of damage and death will be unbelievable. Well, what happens this time, this is only part of it, because the other part has to do with hail and a destroying storm. Okay, well, the next thing to come up, see, the Middle East is preparing for war. Russia, Iran, Turkey and stuff continue to move closer and closer to Israel. They want Israel. Israel is a problem to them. And why? Because Israel has come across a huge oil supply, which they're not even talking about really. They know it. They have it. They've been beginning drilling, but they've tried to keep it as much of a secret as possible. And of course, the untold billions of metric gallons or tons or whatever of natural gas that they've been pumping out of there. And this is the whole reason for the war in Syria. People like the United States and Europe and stuff like that, they want a pipeline to go through the Middle East, through Syria, so it can bring oil or natural gas and oil to Europe instead of having to deal with the Russians. Well, the Russians want the same area. They want a pipeline that goes down through there and cuts them out of it, that goes through Syria. So this fight over Syria is these major countries all want their pipeline. It's either one or the other. But it needs Syria to do it. So it's been gearing up for a war. And Israel's a threat because Israel, with all this natural gas and oil, will be able to sell it to people like the United States and Europe for cheaper than what they've been getting from the Russians. Well, that's a threat. Not only is it a threat, the fact that they want this pipeline in Syria, if they were to win it, but now Russia's going to get cut out of the deal, and that's pretty much all Russia has to sell is their oil. Well, they're not going to let that happen. So according to Ezekiel 38 and 39, a war is coming where these countries are going to come into Israel with the intention of wiping them off the face of the earth. Okay? And it mentions Gog, Magog, Meshach and Tubal. It mentions Persia. It mentions Turkey, which is Torgama. It mentions what's the other country that mentions? It mentions Kut and Push and stuff like that, which are other northeastern African countries, like the areas of Chad and Somalia and stuff like that. And they're all coming there to make war against Israel. And what happens? It's the only thing. What happens? They come in there with this massive army prepared to destroy them. And then you hear some of the countries that have something to say against this, but that's all they do. There's a passage where it talks about Sheba, Dedan, and Tarshish, and its young lions. Well, most Bible scholars who've done any recent study realize that the place of Tarshish is actually speaking of the British Isles. Okay, and it says, and its young lions, which would be people like Canada, Australia, the United States. We all came from them. And so in Sheba, though, that's Arabia. That's the Saudi Arabian area. Dedan, that most likely could be countries like Yemen or the United Arab Emirates. It's some of the other countries that are in the Arabian Peninsula. And it says, they say to the army that's coming, have you come to take Israel as a spoil, to destroy them? That's it. It's a question. It seems to me that they're questioning him, but they're not doing anything to help him. Well, none of these countries could come to their aid. Britain couldn't come to their aid. The United States couldn't come to their aid. None of these countries could come to their aid. Why? Because they just lost tens of millions of people from a gigantic tsunami. And so they're suffering from this devastating effect from a tsunami. They've got no ability to defend Israel anymore, particularly us, but no one could. And Sheba and all these other countries that are attacking Israel at this point, they weren't affected by the wave. So now here's your chance. Now the United States in particular, and Britain even comes to their aid as well. They've been affected so bad by the tsunami, they're not going to be able to help Israel. All their ships, they're going to have ships destroyed. Think about how many ships are going to be destroyed in this process. The ships in Spain, England, all up the coast, Portugal, ships in Canada, the United States, all the ships we have in the Atlantic, gone. There's a good chance that there won't be hardly any of them left. Or a third of the ships in the world destroyed. Well, probably a lot of them are on the East Coast. So we couldn't even send our military in to help them if we wanted to. So we got this massive disaster. This would be the perfect time for Russia and all these countries here to strike. And what does it say? It says that God responds in one day by sending down fire and hail and a destroying wind. And it says that 85%, or it says 5/6 of their armies are destroyed. And it may even include their country too. So suddenly in one day, probably the same day this happens, within 24 hours, they make this attack. And God sends this destroying hail, just like he did in the days of Joshua, against these 5 kings, again, probably about the same amount, and destroys them in one day. And Israel, and then it says the world knows that there is a God. So yes, this is a major plague, people, and this is going to be a game changer here. When this plague happens, and if the first trumpet has already sounded with all these fires, we're not very far away from this one. If this happens, not only is it going to affect us badly, but it's going to start a war it's going to start World War III, which is going to last about 24 hours, with the entire armies of the people of the Gog Magog invasion destroyed. They will be mere shadows of their former selves. They'll never have the ability or strength to attack anybody ever again. Okay, that's a good thing for that. But the amount of death toll and the destruction that's going to happen from this plague, which I believe is all connected, that this mountain being cast into the sea is part of the Isaiah 28 prophecy. We're going to be affected. The whole world's going to be affected. That's going to cause such devastation, not only from the tsunami, but from the war that shows up afterwards. So I hope you take this to heart. I really do. Pray to God that He gives you more revelation on this. I believe I've given you an awful lot, but pray and ask God: is this really what's happening? Is this real? Is this really what Is this really what Max is telling us? So, and I hope you've enjoyed this, because this prophecy has sat with me for 7 years, and I'm glad that I can give it to you guys now, and I believe it's coming soon. At some point, it's coming very soon. And all the players that are for this war are in the Middle East right now. So pray, God, for your protection. And I pray, Lord, any of you who are out there who live near perhaps one of these areas that might be hit, I pray, Lord, that you protect them, or get them to leave, or whatever you got to do. So this is Max. I'm signing out. God bless you all, and take care till next time.